Greetings. I am speaking to you from the forests of New Jersey. You may ask, is it cold out here? The answer is yes, but am I cold? The answer is no, because I'm very well dressed for the weather. Today's topic is about how to protect against inflation. I've talked about this in previous videos, but I want to reach new people because I realized I didn't really optimize my keywords in previous videos. And if you're watching this, I would really appreciate it if you like the video, subscribe, comment if you have any thoughts on the topic, because this will help me in the algorithm so I can spread the message and help people preserve their wealth during these economic times. Because right now we are experiencing inflation, lots of inflation. The news came out recently, and the United States is now at a 7% inflation rate, which is very high. In fact, it is a 40-year high. The last time we had an inflation rate this high was in 1982, which was before I was born. So this is something that is significant news. And it's not just the United States. A lot of countries worldwide are also experiencing inflation. And this is a problem that we need to address. And people want to learn how they can protect against inflation, how they can preserve their wealth during these inflationary times. So if you want to help out, like and subscribe and comment if you have any thoughts so that we can spread the message and help as many people as possible. So let's get to the topic at hand. So when it comes to inflation, a lot of people worry because inflation means that your wealth in the form of cash will depreciate in value. The purchasing power of your cash will be reduced. And that is because of how inflation works. So a main cause or what inflation really is that prices generally go up, which means that you won't be able to buy as much as you can with the same amount of money today as you could have a few weeks ago. And that means that you're not as wealthy as you are with the same amount of cash now as you were before. And this is a problem. This means your wealth has been devalued. And a main cause of this inflation is governments printing lots of money. Ever since the pandemic, there has been economic problems with how government has responded to the pandemics, and governments address these economic problems by funding economic programs. But a lot of governments are already in debt, so how are they funding these expensive economic programs? Well, they are printing a lot of money to do it. The United States is doing it. Many other countries around the world are doing it. I know a lot of my viewers are watching outside the United States, and many of their countries are also doing the same thing that the United States is doing. Quantitative easing, printing lots of money, which leads to inflation. And this is worrying, like I talked about before, because your wealth in the form of cash is being devalued. So, how should we protect against inflation? We know inflation is a problem. What actions can we take to preserve our wealth during inflationary times, and perhaps even be able to grow our wealth during these times? Well, first you have to know that inflation devalues our wealth by devaluing our cash assets. It does not mean that it necessarily devalues our other assets. Our real estate assets, our stock assets, our gold assets, other assets, they don't suffer from the currency being devalued. And that is the key to understanding how to protect against inflation. The key is you need to convert your wealth in cash into other assets that can maintain their value during inflationary times. So what are these assets that can maintain their value during inflationary times? So I mentioned some before, but gold is a popular one. Gold is basically an alternative currency. I know it has been demonetized officially by the governments of the world when they went off the gold standard, but they still treat it as a currency because they still hold large amounts of gold reserves. And to understand why, you have to understand the history behind gold. Basically, gold really was the currency historically, and there are many reasons why. First of all, gold is rare and it is indestructible. You can't really destroy gold. It's virtually indestructible, and that's because of its chemical properties. And that makes it a very good store of value. Also, gold is something that is difficult to mine. You can't really flood the supply of gold with more gold easily because it's so expensive and difficult to mine gold. Whereas with paper money or with modern fiat currencies, the governments can really print as much money as they want. And the only reason they don't do that is because that would lead to huge inflation. So we basically rely on the competence and the goodwill of our governments, which is unfortunately proven to not necessarily always be the case, because many governments have proven that they are incompetent, at least sometimes, or they don't always have the best interests of the people at heart. But with gold, you don't have to worry about that, because whether or not you like it, gold is difficult to mine, it's difficult to flood the supply. Governments can't do it easily, you can't do it easily, corporations can't do it easily. It takes a lot of money to mine gold, and that makes it inherently resistant to inflation. But also, gold is just inherently valuable. It's beautiful, there's a lot of demand for it in jewelry, in other industrial and commercial purposes, for many aesthetic reasons. And even though we don't even use gold as a currency anymore, the price of gold in US dollars or in many other currencies rose significantly because we still value gold as something that is beautiful, that can be used in many different things when it comes to commerce, aesthetics, industry, etc. So when you invest in gold, you are converting your cash, your wealth in the form of cash, into wealth in the form of gold, which can maintain its value during inflation. And in fact, it may even rise in value during inflation because of higher demand for gold, because a lot of people also put their money in gold when there is inflation. So that is something that you can consider to protect yourself against inflation. But another option to protect against inflation, and I think a better option, is to invest in platinum. So platinum is another precious metal. In fact, it is even rarer than gold and even more difficult to mine than gold, and it is also very beautiful. In fact, it is valued over gold when it comes to jewelry, when it comes to design, aesthetics. And with the rise of clean energy, there may be a even higher demand for platinum, because platinum is an essential material in the development of many new green technologies. So why platinum? Because right now the price of platinum is lower than gold. Platinum is right now undervalued compared to gold, and this is a historical anomaly because platinum is usually more expensive than gold. The reason why I think the price of platinum now is lower than gold, not completely certain. To be honest with you, maybe there's just a lot of hype for gold. If you look at the price of gold a few years ago, it's quite a bit lower than it is today. And with inflation, there is even more hype with gold. So I don't know why, but if you look at historical trends, platinum is supposed to be more expensive than gold for the reasons I mentioned. So you should take advantage of this opportunity and invest in platinum, because right now it's undervalued. And I made a video about the investment case for platinum, It is literally called The Investment Case for Platinum. I will link it in the description below for you to check out. So platinum is the other option, but in general you can just invest in commodities, not just gold and platinum. You can invest in things like oil, silver, copper, etc. Because during inflation, prices rise. That's the definition of inflation. And these commodities, things like oil, copper, silver, etc., these commodities rise in price when there's inflation. So when you're putting your money into these commodities, you're able to preserve your wealth because they rise with inflation. So another option is to invest in TIPS, which stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. They're basically bonds that are indexed to inflation, so they rise with inflation. So they are basically designed to be invested in to protect against inflation. The problem is with US Treasuries, the US is in a huge amount of debt. And eventually it won't be very sustainable. So I don't think investing in bonds in general is a good idea. We don't know when people will realize how unsustainable it is to keep borrowing and borrowing money, for the government to keep borrowing and borrowing money and selling debt. And at some point, people will realize that this is unsustainable and the bonds may not be a good investment anymore. But even now, I think you should beat them to it before it happens and before your bonds collapse in value or can't be redeemed. And avoid treasuries, avoid bonds from governments that are in huge levels of debt. But a more reasonable investment to make to protect against inflation, and I mentioned this before, is by investing in real estate. So like I said before, when there's inflation, prices rise, and prices of real estate also rise. So when you're buying real estate, you can see their price rise with inflation, so you can preserve your wealth. If you do not have a significant amount of cash to buy whole real estate properties, you can always buy REITs, which stands for Real Estate Investment Trusts. REITs are basically shares of companies that own and operate revenue generating real estate. So you can get a share of real estate by buying REITs, and because real estate prices generally go up during inflation, you'll be able to preserve your wealth and grow your wealth. So another option would be buying cryptocurrencies. Now, I have mixed feelings about crypto. I've mostly been trying to avoid it, but at this point, it's all the rage. Everyone knows about it. Few people understand it. Some people think it's the next biggest thing. Some people think it's a Ponzi scheme. Some people think it's a scam. You get lots of different opinions about it, lots of arguments over it. I think that the technology behind it, blockchain, is very powerful. There's a lot of potential for it. And I also think that there are reasons why people are so crazy about crypto. It's decentralized. You don't have to rely on the competence and the goodwill of the governments to maintain the currency and maintain the integrity of the currency. It also has safeguards against inflation. Bitcoin mining, crypto mining in general is supposed to be resistant to inflation because they are designed and programmed to be difficult and expensive to do. And that makes it safer from inflationary pressures. However, people do call it cryptocurrency, but is it really used as a currency? When was the last time you bought a cup of coffee with Bitcoin or Ethereum? When was the last time you bought anything of material value with these cryptocurrencies? I think the last major example I can think of where people were actually using cryptocurrencies to buy and sell things was on silkroad.com, which was a website used to trade a lot of illegal stuff, drugs, and a lot of illegal stuff in general, and it got shut down. But otherwise, I think most people don't really use Bitcoin or any of these cryptocurrencies as a currency. They don't use it as a medium of exchange. They're just really investing in it, buying it, because they think that its value will go up. And I think this is very similar to speculation. This is very similar to gambling, because you're not using it as something that has inherent value, although there is a potential for it to be used as a currency, but it really isn't used as a currency that much, to be honest. And if it is, I don't think it's at these prices right now. Like, the price of Bitcoin is in the tens of thousands of dollars. The price of Ethereum is in the thousands of dollars. So if it is used as a currency, it will probably be at a lower price. But anyway, the way the situation is right now is that people are just buying it because they think it'll make them a lot of money. It's a bit like a get-rich-quick scheme. And that is a problem, because when the bubble pops, a lot of people will lose their wealth. But I'm not trying to cast a blanket judgment against all cryptocurrencies. I'm not even going to say that Bitcoin necessarily will collapse and disappear and everyone will lose all their wealth. But I am saying that there's a lot of worrying signs about it because of the volatility, the unpredictability, the fact that the price of Bitcoin, for example, can fluctuate so rapidly from a single tweet from Elon Musk. It's a bit like gambling almost. It's not very rational predicting the value of these cryptocurrencies that aren't even really used as currencies. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think it's kind of like the internet days when a lot of .com companies were a bit completely useless, but that doesn't mean all .com companies are useless. Amazon, I think, was started during that time, and now it's one of the most valuable companies that a lot of people use. So we'll see. And I think cryptocurrencies are in that stage. There's a lot of different cryptocurrencies. Some may actually be scams, and people are gambling on it, people are speculating on it. A lot of people just buy it to try to get rich quick. There's not a lot of rationality behind a lot of these investments, but that doesn't mean that all cryptocurrencies will die. That doesn't mean that all cryptocurrencies don't have any potential. I've read more good things about Ethereum, which has more uses when it comes to contracts. So it may have potential. Some cryptocurrencies may have potential. So I think it's a mixed bag right now. There's a lot of unpredictability to it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on crypto. So that was my tangent on my thoughts on cryptocurrency. So let's get back to the topic of this video, which is to protect against inflation. But yeah, you can invest in crypto to protect against inflation, but personally, it's not my cup of tea. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not saying all cryptos are bad, but at the moment, a lot of it is speculation. There's a lot of volatility. So you should try to be rational about your investments. But another thing you can invest in to protect against inflation is foreign currencies, other currencies. Yes, we have inflation right now. A lot of countries have serious amounts of inflation. and a lot of currencies are unstable. But not all currencies are unstable. Some currencies are stable. Currencies like the Swiss franc, like the Swedish krona, the Norwegian krona, maybe even the Danish krona. You can exchange your unstable currencies for these more stable currencies. I've spent a lot of time in Sweden the past year and a half. Great country. But besides that, the Swedish krona is pretty stable, and you don't see massive amounts of inflation. And same applies for other currencies as well. So that's another way to protect against inflation, exchanging your unstable currency for more stable currencies. And the last investment you can make that I will talk about to protect against inflation is the stock market. So obviously with inflation, the value of your cash goes down, but that doesn't mean the value of your stocks will go down. Prices go up in general, which means that some stocks may have some problems, some companies may have problems because of the economic environment due to inflation. But some companies may even benefit from inflation. Companies that are not so capital intensive, that don't rely on buying so many supplies, they won't suffer as much from inflation because they don't need to buy so many supplies, and because prices go up, they can sell their goods and services for more without suffering from the costs rising too much. So some companies may benefit from inflation. Other companies that are more capital intensive may suffer from inflation. So you should look at the companies that are that are less capital intensive. But in general, the stock market is a way to protect yourself against inflation, because your cash currencies may devalue, but your stock assets may not devalue and may even rise during inflation. However, I will say that right now, stock prices are quite overvalued. Stock prices are beaten up quite high. I personally wouldn't invest too much in the stock market at this time. Of course, you may find a few really good investments there, but in general, stock prices are very high, so it's not a good time to buy. You want to buy on the dip when prices are low, and then your investment can appreciate a lot more and you can make a lot more money, rather than buying at the peak, which is probably where we are right now, or close to where we are, because then the prices can collapse a lot and there's not a lot of potential for it to go up, at least not before things go back down. So yeah, those are the investments you can make to protect against inflation. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope you are able to preserve your wealth during these inflationary times. If you did find the video helpful, make sure to give the video a like and comment your thoughts. Comment on what you want me to discuss, because I'm here to help you guys succeed in business, in your finances, and in life in general. And make sure to subscribe for more helpful content, and because it helps me with the algorithm. Let's work together to spread this message and help as many people as possible learn about ways they can protect their wealth, grow their wealth, and succeed in business, in their finances, and in life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.